Heiden.
Hi, I'm Marissa Heiden.
And I'm Laura Zamsky, and this is our presentation about photography during the Great Depression.
So before discussing our topic, we had to come up with a research question, which was, how does the photography from the Great Depression capture the essence of the time period?
And after we actually looked at our evidence and got to see the photographs, we came up with a thesis statement. And our thesis statement was, the photography of the Great Depression captured the terrible suffering of the people who lost everything by showing the horrid reality. So Roy Stryker was kind of the big name on campus when it comes to photography. He worked for the FSA, which was the Farm Security Administration, which was later renamed as the Resettlement Administration. And the FSA was was an administration that worked with FDR and the New Deal, kind of about making jobs for people that during the Great Depression had lost everything. And from the FSA, there was a photography program created that Roy Stryker was put as leader. And this photography program, basically, it was up to Roy Stryker to get 20 photographers to go out into the world and capture what was going on during the Great Depression. And Roy Stryker, he was in charge of editing all the film, getting all the negatives, and submitting them to magazines and newspapers around the world, and documenting them for our later history. Roy Stryker, he didn't really want to have Americans come off as a really sad, victims of the Great Depression. He really was a fan of the rugged individual. And you can see in this picture here that actually, she's smiling, this picture, and it wasn't really supposed to be a sad collection. It was supposed to be about, the hard workers and the people that suffered and were trying to get themselves out of the hole that the economy had dug itself into. And as Roy Stryker submitted all these photos around the world, it was the birth of photojournalism. And the photojournalism now, you don't really think of it as anything different because we've grown up with magazines that are all photos. But usually it was mostly articles and things like that. But since cameras were invented, which was much earlier than this time period, but photography wasn't really used to accompany a piece of writing. So these photos really are worth 1,000 words because they do teach a lesson, and they do continue to teach us lessons about the Great Depression and just how real it was. So in this program, Roy Stryker had hired 20 photographers, one of them being Dorothea Lange, which was someone that we'll talk about later, but she was also very famous coming from this program. And this is also, because of Roy Stryker and this program, it is the most complete collection of photography during a certain time period ever to be documented. Most of the photos actually survived throughout the years. They're in the Library of Congress. And you'd think that throughout the ages we would have lost so many of these photos, but we actually have done quite well with preserving these photos, which is a great feat for us. Even though this whole program was created to do the opposite of laissez-faire, the FSA was known for, taking action about the Great Depression and giving people opportunities instead of just letting what would happen. And really, the photography program was a little bit in the middle between laissez-faire and actually bringing people out of the dark, because they were there to send a message, but they didn't interfere with the struggles that they watched. They were there just to watch and record, and hopefully in maybe a year or so after the photos were published, the people would finally see a difference when support came.
So before the Depression, Dorothea Lange got her start when she attended a photography class at Columbia University and later opened her portrait studio, but was closed down during the Great Depression. After her portrait studio got closed down, that's when she joined the FSA photography program and became one of 20 photographers for Roy Stryker. So all of Dorothea's most famous photos came out of the Great Depression, and one that she was known most for was the migrant mother photo shown right here. And in the photo, it just shows a migrant mother worker and trying to comfort her two children. And on her face, you can see the depression and just how it's affected her, and she's just sad. And then her children are just looking for her for comfort and protection. The migrant mother photo is still talked about to this day. What makes it so popular, and even so popular in the Great Depression, was that it captured the hardship of the Depression, and it showed what the Depression was all about, the struggle, and how people just fought to get through it. The migrant mother photo provokes a lot of emotion because it shows just a struggling mother trying to get by with her helpless children who have nothing, and the mother is just trying to provide for her so much. And the top right corner of the screen is Dorothea Lange in an action shot she was taking.
Here are two more photographs from the FSA photography collection. They're both of families, which happen to be some of the most feeling-invoking photographs. And the entire reason we take a photograph in the first place is so we can convey a message. And these two photographs definitely do convey a message. These people definitely do not look happy, even though they're not necessarily posing. Roy Stryker definitely did not want anyone to pose in their photographs. They were just supposed to observe and just capture what they saw. In almost every single photograph, you do see these homes, which is something that we can't necessarily read about in a book. It's so much, you really can see exactly how bad the Depression was from the condition of these homes that people were staying in, families were staying in. And in the other photos you've seen too, it's really something to look at how people lived during the Great Depression when they absolutely had nothing. And these photographs, the way that they are preserved and put in the Library of Congress, is so that we don't forget the Great Depression. And since these photographs are such solid evidence of what did happen and how rough things were, it may even keep us from something like this happening again, which is what we can only hope for with history.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our video lecture. This is Laura Zamsky.
And Marissa Heiden.
Signing off. Yeah.